up, everybody? It is November 28th, which means we are in for Monday Madness. You are listening to the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast, the only daily casual wrestling talk show where we discuss everything that is going on in the world of WWE and AEW. If you enjoy the content and you are feeling oozy, you are welcome to go ahead and click the link in the description of this video to donate a couple of dollars. If not, just sit back and enjoy the next 30 minutes of pro wrestling talk. As always, if you don't know now, you know, I am the Notorious Nerdy D, aka the voice of the casual wrestling community and host of the Casual Wrestling Community channel. Housekeeping. Remember, we are on patreon.com/the Casual Wrestling Show. It is 100% free to follow. That is where I post all of the channel updates and community updates. So make sure to jump over to patreon.com/the Casual Wrestling Show. Hit the follow button. You don't have to become a Patreon. You just have to follow. I will be posting a video blog midweek this week, so look out for that. Kind of just updating everybody on what's going on. And what would we do if we didn't shout out our Patreon producers for this week? It's Zinni, LGRSM, Redis, JC, and Ian Newberry. So shout out to those guys. They are the official bloodline of this show because everybody else is a 2, and those guys are the 1. It is Monday. So today I will be telling everyone the 5 biggest mistakes that WWE made at Survivor Series War Games this past Saturday. But first, let's look at the top things you need to know about in the world of wrestling today, starting with Dom and Rhea break the internet on Thanksgiving. So Dom and Rhea dropped a sweet little gem of a video for us on Thanksgiving where Dom and Rhea showed up uninvited to Rey Mysterio's house for Thanksgiving. Now, everybody knows I'm not a big Dominic guy. I hate on Dominic a lot, and I 100% stand by everything that I say about the guy. I just don't believe that Dominic Mysterio is ready for the amount of spotlight that he actually gets. But this right here, this type of stuff, this social media clip stuff, this pre-videotape stuff, this is the best position to put Dominic in to be successful. This is what WWE needs to be doing. Scripted moments on social media where he can do bad things that'll gain him heat with the WWE Universe because he has a little bit of heat. And the more he can build upon that, the more he can do with Rey Mysterio, the better he can be. This clip was viewed like 1.5 million times on Twitter, which means it was probably twice that on YouTube and twice that on Instagram. So this clip made the rounds. I thought maybe they should have done a better job of promoting this on the actual Survivor Series show, but they really beat home this heel mentality, and they're doing a pretty good job of getting Dom over, at least as far as like pre-scripted stuff, and making him seem like a bad guy. But Dom is at his best, guys, in his young career when there's an emotional connection and an emotional investment to what he's got going on. The whole Dennis the Menace thing where he's running around being part of the Judgment Day, it's not working. The crowd is booing him less and less because he's becoming less and less relevant. And right now, the thing that involves Dominic and Rey Mysterio is the only thing that we have a real emotional connection to. And I get it, right now we're building towards WrestleMania. That's what WWE is doing here, right? They're building toward what I'm assuming is going to be Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio in a big WrestleMania showdown, a big WrestleMania moment where Dom probably beats Rey and they hug it out. But I get it, but in my heart of hearts, I believe that moment is better suited for a smaller premium live event than it is for WrestleMania. I just don't know that the payoff for that is going to be what WWE thinks it's going to be. And don't get me wrong, guys. The Dominic Mysterio army, which does exist, I know this firsthand, right? There's a Dominic Mysterio army. It's made up of women and kids that still wear their helmets when they ride their bikes. All of those guys are going to rate that match 5 stars. And then they're going to come at me with their pitchforks and their torches and tell me I was wrong about Dominic Mysterio all along. But the truth, it still remains. This Dominic Mysterio, Rey Mysterio stuff is better suited for like Royal Rumble, for a mid-level premium live event. Stop wasting our WrestleMania time on stuff that 90% of the audience doesn't care about. Like, let's be honest. The truth is, this Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio stuff is probably better suited for NXT. It's actually like perfect for NXT television. It could be given more time to breathe. It could be put in the main event spotlight. It would drive viewership to NXT, and Dominic could grow and thrive in an environment that was built for someone of his stature. He's not ready for the big show, guys. I don't know how many times I have to scream this. He's just not ready. And let's be honest at this point. If we're just going to be open and honest, the Judgment Day is mundane at this point. They're not collecting any titles. They're not picking up any consistent big wins. Damian Priest has become a 100% non-factor on Monday Night Raw. Dominic is what Dominic is. He's Rhea Ripley's little bitch. And Rhea isn't even really around the Judgment Day when it matters anymore, right? She's off doing her own thing in her own matches. Cut the group loose. Let Dom go do his NXT thing. Let him feud with his dad. Whatever they've got planned for Dom, let him go do that. Repackage Damian Priest. Let him do something. Let Finn Balor move on to the real push that he deserves. And let Rhea Ripley start actually getting involved in a women's division that feels like it's getting a little stagnant. It's time. Like, it's time to let go of some of these things. The Judgment Day was a failed project. From the minute Edge stepped out of the Judgment Day, they were a wounded bird, and they fluttered around, and they had little gleams and glimpses of possibility, but for the most part, like they fluttered and their flame has gone out. I think it's time. I think the OC should end the Judgment Day, and Finn should move on, and we should do other things. That's just my opinion on that. Sasha Banks' chants were muted during WWE Survivor Series. So according to Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer, during the Shotzi and Ronda Rousey match, the Boston crowd was actually muted as they chanted, "We want Sasha." This is interesting. It's interesting that fans, they're not going to let this go, Triple H. They're not going to let this one die. This is the type of thing that starts to snowball and get worse. If it gets out of hand and the fans start to catch on that you're muting crowd chants, they're going to speak up even more. They're going to chant even more. And muting chants, that's a horrible idea. That could catch fire. That could catch fire like the CM Punk chants did for a while. How much leverage does this give Sasha Banks in negotiations? Because the rumor is right now, guys, that Sasha is discussing money now with WWE. That the holdup in her return is that there's contract issues between the amount of money she deserves, and maybe she feels like she's worth more. And it's shit like this that makes somebody go, I am worth more. If the crowd's still chanting for me, when you have Ronda Rousey out there, who's the horse that you've put your wagon on as far as SmackDown goes, that's interesting going into negotiations, because Sasha Banks is one of those polarizing wrestling figures, right? She has a large group of people who actually hate her, but then she actually has this huge cult following that just loves her, man. Like, they just love her. Things might have just gotten a little bit messy as far as negotiations go between WWE and Sasha Banks. And you have to, when you do this, you have to look at the other side of this with AEW starting to get a little bit of a buzz. There's a little bit of buzz in the women's division, right? You got Saraya making news. You got Britt Baker doing her thing. You got Jade Cargill. You got Jamie Hayter. Like, there's starting to be a little bit Toni Storm. There's starting to be a little bit of buzz in the AEW women's division. So keeping Sasha could prove to be just as much about keeping her away from AEW than it is from actually adding another star back to the WWE roster. On paper, if you're just looking at paper, the WWE women's roster looks so good. But shitty booking, man. It has devalued some of WWE's biggest assets. Look at Alexa Bliss. She has been devalued. Look at Asuka. Devalued. Look at Damage Control. Devalued. Nobody really came out of that women's War Games match with just heavy momentum. It was a clusterfuck of a match, and nobody came out looking like the next big star in WWE. I would pay attention. Let's see if Triple H is really all about booking for the fans and bringing and giving the fans what they want, Or was that just a ploy early on to get admiration when he was transitioning the creative power to himself? I haven't seen a ton of fan service since, especially casual fan service, since Clash at the Castle. It's been more about appeasing the IWC. And with crowds that have been like weirdly silent, for them to then go to Boston and have the crowd speak up and say, we want Sasha back, and for you to mute that and try to pretend like that's not happening, I think I would have sat down today, Monday, and just hashed it out with Sasha and said, we got to get you back on television either tonight or Friday, one way or the other. Like, you need to be back on TV ASAP. In other news, there was a story that said Hit Row was brought in by WWE to Boston for Survivor Series, but were not used. I don't understand where they would have been used. Maybe there was a plan to do something with Escobar and Hit Row or something like that, but it feels like that card was pretty packed up. But according to Fightful Select, Hit Row and other wrestlers were brought out to Boston. However, they were not used in last night's show. This article is from yesterday. Despite the fact that they were around, Hit Row wasn't used. Hit Row, man. When people ask me why I am critical on Triple H and his booking, because I am. I'm one of the more vocal people who hasn't given him his flowers and just bowed down to the church of Triple H. Hit Row is one of the main booking decisions that I point to. I like to go, you bring back this interesting group of talented wrestlers, right? That features some solid talent. You have Ashante the Adontist, who, in my opinion, is the weakest of the group, but that's not calling him weak, just the weakest of a group that is very unique. He has some charisma. He has a moveset that works on television. You bring him back, you absolutely just mute him on television. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really know anything about Ashante the Adonis, except that he's part of Hit Row. Then you have Top Dollar, whose size alone is enough to move the needle, but he also can move around pretty good for a big guy. If Top Dollar was given even half the treatment that Omos was given, he could get over with the fans. Like, he's got personality, he's got size, he moves around. Just bad booking. It's just bad booking, right? And then you have B-Fab. And B-Fab has all the looks that you want for a women's wrestler, but she's just underutilized, giving no time to talk, giving no time to like let her personality show through. If Triple H is unsure on Hit Row, then he needs to send them back down to NXT. Let them polish up. Let them get whatever it is that they're missing. And then you can bring them up because there's potential there. Look at what Tony Khan has done with people like Jade Cargill, someone who clearly wasn't ready for the level of spotlight that she was given. But because of confidence and clever booking, she's got some fans convinced she's the best women's wrestler in the entire business. Obviously not true, but that's just clever booking. Give Tony Khan some props on that. I still don't understand right now why Triple H brought back Hit Row. I don't, like, was it for the cheap pop? Because it feels like that at this point. Because if you look at the way they've been booked, it's really confusing, right? We had one weird concert where they come out and rap. We had some confusing squash matches where it looked like we were actually going to put them over. Then we feuded them with Maximum Male Models, which, you know, was a dud. They rehashed a feud with Legado de Fantasma, which lasted like 2 weeks before they got tired of that, moved them to the SmackDown World Cup, and now they're being fed to the Viking Raiders. I don't get it, Triple H. Like, I don't get, where is this booking? You guys, someone's going to have to step up and show me this impressive booking that's changing WWE. I don't see, like, it still looks like the Vince McMahon show to me. The biggest names right now in pro wrestling are the same biggest names that were around during WrestleMania. Convince me otherwise. Change my mind. Seth Rollins was a star under Vince, is a star right now. The Bloodline, they were rolling under Vince. They're rolling right now. Drew McIntyre has actually lost more matches and more status since Triple H took over. Finn Balor no longer being booked or protected like Vince McMahon was booking him, but actually now is getting beat in matches that are a little bit confusing to me, right? Riddle, now a mid-carder. Vince had Riddle At one point, it looked like Riddle was going to be a main event contender. His match with Roman Reigns was phenomenal. And now he's back to the mid-card on Monday Night Raw, a Monday Night Raw that's dying for stars. And you have him tag teaming with Elias. Doesn't make sense to me, man. Bianca and Becky Lynch, those names sound real familiar. Who were the big features of the War Games match? That's your two. Becky got the pin. But Vince McMahon, they were the main draw for Vince McMahon. And don't tell me now that Triple H is taking over and that Becky Lynch is a good guy, that anything has really changed. She's wearing the same outfits. She's booked the same way. Nothing's changed there, right? Crown Jewel, Brock Lesnar was brought back for emergency, just like Vince would have done. Either Vince McMahon is really hiding in the shadows booking these events, or Triple H really isn't that different. Like, he came out of the chutes hot, but there's a lot of confusing decisions being made by Triple H, Hit Row being one of those that I don't understand. Someone has to point out to me these amazing changes. What has changed so much? I get ticket sales are up, people are excited, but wrestling's just kind of up in general. Besides SummerSlam and besides Clash at the Castle, you guys got to show me, where is this phenomenal booking by Triple H? I don't really see it. Last story here I have today is Jey Uso suffers a possible injury during the Survivor Series War Games match. So when the Usos and Sami Zayn attempted to set up a table around a minute before Kevin Owens emerged as the fourth member of his team, Jey went to lean on the ropes, and Jey was heard on a live microphone telling his teammates that he believed his hand was broken as the camera cut away from the action. I actually heard this during the match. A lot of times I miss this kind of stuff. But I actually heard this, and I leaned over to Lauren and I said, I don't think that's part of the story. I think he really messed his hand up. He protected it the rest of the match. I paid close attention. But the professional that Jey is, he finished the match. He knew what was at stake. He knew how integral he was to the story. He sucked it up. It'll be interesting now to see, hopefully we get an update later today, if that hand is really broken or if he just keeps, messing up ligaments because he keeps getting in there and working hurt. Either way, obviously, this hand is causing Jey Uso some pain. So the real question that has to be asked here is, the Usos basically since WrestleMania they've been leaned on heavily to carry not just the weight of the bloodline, but on a weekly basis in WWE, they've been asked to pull double duty on Raw and SmackDown for the early and mid part of the year. Fatigue has to be setting in on these guys. The bloodline right now is just ramping up as well, right? We're just getting into like the meat of this story. We got 9 weeks until the Royal Rumble, and it's full steam ahead, right? This is the build to WrestleMania. It begins in 9 weeks. And once again, Roman doesn't make weekly appearances. Roman shows up when Roman wants to. So the bloodline, once again, is going to have to lean on the Usos. And if they're fatigued and beat down, what's going to happen here? There is no premium live event to build towards right now. And Royal Rumble has a notoriously weird build to begin with because you're really not building towards a series of matches. You're building towards the chaos of the Rumble itself. So pay close attention because this next week will be very telling. It'll give us a clear picture of what WWE is going to give us, in the weeks to come. Is there going to be a smaller event to look forward to? Are we going to get a Super SmackDown or a Super Raw? One of these AEW style, not quite a premium live event, but a show that means a little more than the others? Because Triple H is going to have to start booking incredibly smart if he doesn't want people to lose interest around the holidays. AEW right now is at full stride. You can bet that MJF is his big goal here is to even the ratings, is to pull close. He's at full stride, and WWE is going to have to compete. They're going to have to compete because I believe MJF is going to he'll die for this. He's going to put his all in it. He's going to make the ratings as competitive as he can. And you talk about an opportunity with 9 weeks and nothing big happening. This is an opportunity for MJF to make up some of that ground. All right, so it is Monday Madness, which means Typically, we would do a bracket battle, but since there was a premium live event today, I'm going to tell you the top 5 mistakes that I think WWE made at War Games. So there were a lot of things to like at War Games. I'm not hating on it. I actually enjoyed the event as an overall event and not really putting it into context of what it needed to be. More just viewing it as its individual thing. It wasn't bad. As far as like the Triple H era goes, I put it right between Clash at the Castle and Crown Jewel. I think it was better than Crown Jewel, but I don't think it was even nearly what Clash at the Castle was. So it's Triple H's third best effort as far as I'm concerned. But I clearly saw multiple things that made me go, what? What? I saw the thing. Like, there were things that made me go, what? Like Stone Cold says. So these are the top 5 biggest mistakes that I think WWE made at Survivor Series War Games, starting with that women's match was ugly as shit. Whatever word you want to insert there. It was ugly. And I had been talking about this all week. I said, I don't like the makeup and the chemistry of this match. It might be good just because there's enough talent to mask it, but it really wasn't. The booking was messy. It was a tough one to decipher. I thought that with all that talent, it might be stomachable, but when it was over, I just kind of looked at it and was like, what? What happened? Who came out of that match looking strong? Like, Rhea was solid, but she hasn't come out of that looking overly monstrous the way I think that she looked. She should have come out of that match looking like nobody could touch her. And I don't feel that way, right? Nikki Ash, she did a couple crazy things, but then those crazy things were just overshadowed by Io and Becky doing crazier things. So you didn't really get over the idea that Nikki Ash is crazy. You got over this idea that all the women are willing to jump off the top of the cage and do crazy shit. Also, I love Bianca Belair. Possibly my favorite wrestler in WWE. But let's not lie, she almost ended the careers of Bayley and Dakota Kai with 2 sketchy-ass moves and 2 sketchy-ass spots in that match. One was a powerbomb and one was like a suplex, and both of them looked like, ooh, I don't like that. It doesn't look good. Let's not do those again. Like, this is the type of match that we're watching. This is what opened the show. This was the big go. And without that War Games gimmick, this is a nightmare, right? The War Games gimmick carried that first match along. Io Sky missed a couple big moves. She missed tried to hit a Hurricanrana on Bianca Belair that was just a complete whiff. This match felt like, to me, way too much choreography. It was a lot of everybody wait here for someone to jump on us. And at one point, they were building one of those Tower of Doom things in the corner, and Nikki Ash broke it up. And I don't know if they abandoned it or if that was part of the story, but I was like, thank you. Because that was the last thing that match needed, was a giant choreographed spot from the corner. This match didn't work for me on any level. Like so many people that I'm fans of, but the booking was just messy. Mia Yim, I don't even remember her in the match. Like, I don't remember what her impact was on the match. Her and Rhea Ripley should have been booked in a traditional Survivor Series match with the OC and the Judgment Day. And that should have been a completely separate thing. It makes no sense that was an integral, that they were not an integral part of that match. They were just booked in there because they needed 2 more women. And then let's talk about Becky Lynch getting the final moment in the big pin. That just once again doubles down on my theory that Triple H is relying on this small core of his roster, just like Vince McMahon did. There was an opportunity here to give this moment to somebody else to let them have a big finish. But instead, we're finishing again with Becky Lynch, who I love Becky Lynch. I got no problem, but this wasn't her moment. And Becky Lynch, look, I think she has an identity crisis, because I thought that when we switched over from Big Time Bex back to the man, I thought that created a whole character change, but she's still wearing the goofy outfits, still kind of got the Lady Gaga persona. I don't know exactly, I don't know, man. That match was just messy. It was kind of a train wreck. I had been calling it all week. I said all week, this match bothered me. I've been saying it for weeks that this bothered me, that there wasn't more put into this. This really feels like Triple H was banking on Sasha Banks coming back, and it just never came to fruition. And so he kind of had to make do with what he had left. And that's the problem when you start booking based on things that aren't a sure thing. I mentioned this in my reason number one, but Finn Balor in the AJ match, well, it wasn't a bad match. Good match, actually. Really good match. That needed to be a traditional Survivor Series match. The OC needed to take on the Judgment Day in just a straight up 4-on-4, Survivor Series style elimination match and let the women get involved with the men. They were wasted in War Games. Those two women mixing it up with the guys in that match would have felt fun, would have felt fresh, would have felt different. Instead, we got two factions that basically just disappeared into the crowd, never to be heard from again. And we had Finn Balor take a clean pin from AJ Styles, which I think is a bad look. The Judgment Day, they've run their course. It's time to dismantle the group. It's not making sense anymore. If we're not going to run them as a group in matches, it doesn't make sense to have them do their thing long term. It's time to break it up. Let the stars be stars. Let the other guys kind of flounder around, and we'll figure out who and what happened. But ever since Edge had left the Judgment Day, it's been kind of a nightmare and a shit show that had no real direction. And it shows that Triple H wasn't 100% on board because his booking is sporadic with them. 1 week, they're kind of dominant, and then the next week, they're getting beat up again. They're kind of whipping boys at this point. The third mistake that WWE made with War Games was Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi just as a whole. This was confusing. This was a nightmare. Like, this is a match that if somebody walked away from this match and said, this was good for the show, what are you watching? With all that emotion they tried to build up for Shotzi pre-match. They tried to make it seem like this was her moment. And then for Ronda to just come out and basically, this was a squash match hid behind a match that needed to take up time. That's all it was, right? Ronda never looked like she was even trying. And so we're supposed to believe that Liv Morgan is a real threat to Ronda Rousey, but when Shotzi gets in the ring, Ronda just mocks her, tosses her around. Like, didn't Ronda Rousey just do an interview where she said she wanted to put over the rest of the women's division? That didn't look like putting anybody over. That actually looked like burying Shotzi. Ronda didn't sell any of Shotzi's moves. That DDT on the apron was a fucking joke. And the way she just manhandled Shotzi after Shotzi hit that big dive on the barricade over against her and Shayna Baszler, that's poor match development, guys. Like, you can't have Shotzi pull out all the stops, and then the minute they get back in the ring, it's like Superwoman just arrives and she does an arm drag off the top rope into an arm bar. Like, what's going on here? And then you get this information that WWE muted the crowd because, look, they're chanting, "We want Sasha." The truth is, right now, WWE has put the cart, the wagon, and everything behind Ronda Rousey, and she's gonna need credible opponents. And if the fucking WWE fans want Sasha Banks, give them Sasha Banks. Sign the check. You have the money. Make it work. Whatever it is. Because I can't sit through matches where you want us to, like, suspend belief that Shotzi actually had a chance. Like, I know I said it would have made sense, and there could have been a real feel-good moment had Shotzi surprised Ronda and won that match. They actually could have had some emotion, but instead, they just went with the safe bet and let Ronda squash her. Fourth mistake that WWE made at War Games, and this possibly could be the one that bothered me the most, was the weird fucking transition during Austin Theory's entrance to a Beyblades advertisement. Like, this type of shit scares me. Who in WWE is out there just selling their soul and selling the soul of the wrestlers that now, in a moment like this was supposed to be a big Theory moment, and instead it's a meme and a joke on the internet. You see these pictures of Theory standing in front of this giant Beyblades video. WWE is willing to advertise pretty much anywhere now. I mean, it's bad. Remember when Brock Lesnar used to wear like the UFC style shorts that had advertisements? It's only a matter of time before all these wrestlers have some sort of corporate sponsor. Like the NBA and the NFL, right? Like, Theory's going to have Beyblade logos on his fucking tights. Like, it's insane that they thought that was a suitable idea and that wasn't going to be talked about. And not in a positive way. Like, what about Austin Theory? Maybe Dominic Mysterio's the guy to sell Beyblades because he comes off as a little kid. But what about Austin Theory screams the Beyblade guy? Like next up, are we going to do Seth Rollins and like Wonka bars? Are we going to do Bobby Lashley and like muscle supplements and GNC and things like that? Like what was that just out of the blue, out of nowhere, and it lasted the entire time? Like that's insane to me. Like what was that? And the last mistake I think WWE made with Survivor Series was having no Bray Wyatt be on the card. That doesn't make sense to me, man. You've got this spectacle right now. You've got this magical act. You've got this beautiful entrance. You've got this man who can cut promos that the promo alone moves the crowd and makes them feel like they saw something. And you have an opportunity to do something where you can cut a promo, move his character along even further. Because right now, I'm assuming it looks like that the LA Knight stuff was just a speed bump. We thought it was going to be the first real moment of Bray Wyatt's comeback, but I think it was just a speed bump to kind of build his story up a little more so that Bray Wyatt could continue to feud with Bray Wyatt, because that's what's happening. Why not let him further the story at War Games? Like, you have opportunity, you have time, let him come out and cut. 5 minutes is all you need for people to feel fulfilled, and we didn't get that. There were no weird glitches, no QR codes, no teases. Alexa Bliss was out there and there was no mention or no tease, nothing. Like, I thought we could have got a light flicker. We could have got a screen twitch during her entrance, but we got nothing. No semblance of Bray Wyatt whatsoever at Survivor Series War Games. And I think that's a mistake. Like, you guys remember just a couple weeks ago, WWE fans were losing their shit over this whole White Rabbit thing. It was the only thing we were talking about. And now it does feel like the pot is cooling off a little bit. Bray Wyatt by no means is over, but he's relegated to SmackDown at this point. And I don't know that the casual fans are willing to like consume this story 1 minute at a time every Friday. That's a slow work. And now we have 9 weeks before Royal Rumble, and we're supposed to invest into this Bray Wyatt thing and this self-therapy. But are we gonna get fed 1 minute a week for the next 9 weeks going into the Royal Rumble, or is Bray Wyatt going to start stepping in the ring and doing a couple things? But like, this was weird. This felt like a moment, a big stage where you could have furthered that story and had something big happen. And we're just getting teased and teased and teased. And I don't like to see premium live events go by where we don't get a big chunk of the Bray Wyatt story. It doesn't make sense. So, is he going to wrestle in the next 9 weeks? Who the hell knows? It's I guess time will tell. But it looks like that's all the time I have today for the Casual Wrestling Daily Podcast. I will pick up where I left off tomorrow. Make sure to tune in Monday through Friday for more amazing WWE and AEW podcasting content. As always, I am the Notorious Nerdy D. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, Casual Wrestling Community Show. You already know. Talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious Nerdy D. Don't be sure that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like for show.